Good day, everyone. Today, I am going to present to you the priority non-preemptive CPU scheduling. So we have here the table. If you notice, it has no arrival time, meaning to say that the 4 processes came at one time. Also, the CPU burst time are given. The arrangement of the priority in P1 to 4, in P1 to P4, we have the 4, 3, 2, and 5. Take note that the lower the number, the higher the priority. So at the Gantt chart, at time 0, the 4 processes came at one time. So the operating system will see to it that among the 4 processes will have the higher priority. As I have said a while ago, that the lower the number, the higher the priority. On these processes, P3 has the lowest priority, which is 2. So P3 is the first one to process. In Gantt chart, CPU will process P3. So we have the CPU burst time 6. So we don't have the arrival time, which is considered 0. So 6 plus 0 is 6. P3 will end at time 6. Then the CPU will look for the next priority. It will be the priority 3, which is P2. So P2 will end up time 8. How do we get that? So 6 plus burst time of P2, which is 2, is equal to 8. We are done with the P3 and P2. The next priority will be 4, which is P1. P1 is next to P2 in Gantt chart with CPU burst time 16. P1 will end at time 24. 24 plus 8 plus 6 is equal to 24. Lastly, the last priority will be the P4 with CPU burst time 1, and it will end at time 25. So 24 plus 1 is 25. Now we are going to compute the turnaround time. In P1, in turnaround time, that is the time finish minus the arrival time. For P1, it ends at time 24. If you look at the table, there is no arrival time. As I've said a while ago, that the lower the number, the higher the priority. That if you notice that there is no arrival time, meaning to say that the processes came at one time. So it considered that the arrival time is 0. In P1 is 24, time finish at time 24, minus 0, the arrival time is 24. P2, it end at time 8 minus 0 is 8. At P3, and at time 6, minus arrival time 0 is 6. And P4, it end at time 25 minus 0 is equal to 25. The total turnaround time is add all the turnaround time of every processes. So for P1, 24, for P2 is 8, for P3, is 6 and for P4 is 25 with a total number of 63 and divide it to 4 processes. It is 15.75. Next is the waiting time. For the waiting time, we have turnaround time minus CPU burst time. So for P1, we have the turnaround time 24 minus the CPU burst time 16, that is 8. And for P2, we have the turnaround time 8 and the CPU burst time is 2, that is 6. For P3, we have the turnaround time 6 and the CPU burst time is 6, that is 0. And lastly, for the P4, we have the turnaround time 25 and the CPU burst time 1, that is 24. To get the average waiting time, we have to add the total waiting time of every processes, which is for P1, 8, for P2, 6, for P3, 0, and lastly for P4 is 24, a total of 38, and divide it to 4 because it is 4 processes and a total average waiting time is 9.5. Thank you.